Alrighty, welcome to the STLK in the UTA Jazz Podcast. I'm Conjo. This is Paul. Now we're coming at you in preparation for 2 games, a doubleheader
on the weekend, which makes it more fun.
I mean, nothing screams Halloween weekend like 2 Jazz weekend games.
No, and it's against really competitive teams.
Intimidating for sure.
Really intimidating.
But exciting.
Yes. These are 2 teams that we saw in the conference finals just a couple years ago.
I mean, that doesn't scream exciting and intimidating. I don't know what does.
Well, it is Halloween, so it is a little scary.
Exactly, right? We'll throw some spookiness in there. But for those who don't know, we face off tonight against the Los Angeles Clippers, who are currently 1-0. Mm-hmm. They had a win against the Trailblazers, I believe.
Yes.
And then on Saturday, we actually face off against the Phoenix Suns, who are 1-1. They have not had Bradley Beal yet. Not arguably, but their biggest addition this offseason to go along with Book and KD. And Book didn't play last night either against the Lakers.
And he's not going to be playing tomorrow night against the Jazz either.
Confirmed?
Confirmed. This toe thing that he has going on is said at least a week. From what I saw, again, it's NBA players.
I mean, if it's anything like turf toe, I understand.
I don't understand because I've never had it. It sounds like you have.
Hey, not when you played DB in 2nd grade?
No, it didn't. It didn't ever come in then. But Booker, if it was a playoff game, he'd be playing. It's the beginning of the season. They already showed with Beal. They're going to be really, really cautious.
Hey, in that Clippers game, we saw Kawhi and Paul George.
We did. They both played.
I mean, we don't see that very often.
No. So they both played, and not only did they both play, the game was over in the first half. They got up by, I believe, 24 at one point against the Blazers. If you watch that game, it looked like a JV versus not even a high school varsity team, but versus like a college team. It looked really bad.
Blazers are all new and upcoming, right? Where the Clippers are. I mean, we've got a starting lineup with Paul George and Kawhi, who are, I'd absolutely say veterans, but then you throw Russell Westbrook, also
and Robert Covington,
veteran,
who's a really good defensive player.
Absolutely,
with Zubats.
Yeah. I mean, that is a long tenured team. Mm-hmm. Their only rotation player that's somewhat new is Bones Highland.
Yeah,
who's phenomenal in my opinion.
Great player.
I think he's actually a really great player, especially to fill the shoes when Westbrook needs to come out and stuff like that. So we're going to be breaking down what it looks like for these 2 teams, but we're really excited about having 2 weekend games in a row.
Yeah, it's going to be something to fill the weekend, as if there isn't enough sports going on already now.
Seriously, we've got the World Series. We got
starts
NFL
tomorrow,
on Sunday.
Is that right?
Yeah. So there's a lot of sports going on. So we just got to make sure our attention still is turned to the Jazz,
which it very easily will be.
Absolutely,
very, very high on the priority list. It goes like family, Jazz, and then everything else.
For some, Jazz over family, which is okay.
It depends on if you can DVR the games or not. If you can't, then it goes Jazz family.
See, I'm not a DVR guy.
Really?
If I'm not watching it live, it's hard for me to watch it. I've got to watch it live. One, because my phone's blowing up every 2 seconds with ESPN updates. If I'm not watching it live, I'm finding out about the game in one way or another. So.
Okay, gotcha. So this Clippers team, Conjo, is coming off a year last year where they were ranked 18th defensively, which that means they're on the lower half of the league. They, before that, didn't have a year in the last 5 years that they were below 10. So you look at it like, okay, did they have an unlucky year, a bad year, or are they just not a good defensive team anymore? Watching the Blazers game the other night, I think it is the unlucky side. They look incredible. They look long. They are athletic. They look athletic.
And I think a lot of that has to do with, I know we've said it before, but load management.
Yes.
I mean, you can't get consistent stats if you don't have consistent stars.
Well, that's the thing. So I looked into it. They last year at least didn't have a huge on-off difference with Kawhi, PG. I think the biggest on-off differential on defense was Zubats, which is surprising. Obviously, they were a little bit better with their star players, but they didn't look crazy different with or without them last year, which I knew you were going to bring up. So I'm glad I covered that.
And so, looking into the Utah Jazz, obviously we broke down, what it looked like playing against the Sacramento Kings. I mean, this is a younger team, not as many superstars, but it's honestly the opposite as far as age with the Clippers, but talent-wise, it's all there. And so what do we need to see? I'm going to open this up to not only the Clippers, but the Suns before we go into both teams. But what do the Jazz need to do differently to be able to get some wins on Friday and Saturday? And I want to start with one that obviously we are super biased against this certain player, but I'd like to see more minutes out of Keyonte George. We saw, around 10 or so from last game. I'd like to see him break, 15, maybe even 20 minutes this game. And why not? I mean, it's a Clippers team. I don't see why experimenting with that. Maybe it probably will come against the Suns. He gives them a third game. We don't have Booker, might not have Beal. I think that'd be a good game to kind of get his legs warm and just kind of experiment with 20 minutes. But I think what we were able to see and how the floor was spaced and, wasn't crammed like we saw during the game without him in the game. But I think he is going to be a key player. And I think that is a metric that I'd like to see for us to, get to that point.
Yeah. So I think Keyonte being on the court is really, really important. The idea of Keyonte guarding Russell Westbrook terrifies me just a little bit. Any rookie guarding Russell Westbrook kind of terrifies me.
See, that's what's crazy is Russell Westbrook, even versus the Blazers, he is still absolutely insanely athletic.
He looked incredible.
I mean, 13 assists.
Yes.
He's still doing his same thing, 11 points, but he didn't really shoot the rock that much. But like for him to be able to get up and rebound and kind of still do what he's doing when everyone's calling him washed and doing his thing, like is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, and I'm not sure where you stand on this. I've been a huge Russell Westbrook fan for a very, very long time. And the fact that the Jazz waived him broke my heart.
I am honestly, I forgot we did that. Well, I forgot that we even had, yet again, I don't think he wanted to play for us.
He didn't, and I don't blame him.
But that is, I had completely forgot that we had gotten Westbrook from that. So that's crazy.
Can you imagine this team we have right now with Westbrook at the point guard? We would be a Western contender, I think. I'll be honest, at least with the way he's looking right now. But with that being said, I think Keyonte guarding Russell Westbrook would be hard, which makes me think Will Hardy wants to go back into the zone. I think if we go into the zone against this Clippers team, I think it's going to be over pretty quick.
And I'd like to see, like you said, Will Hardy said we only played, zone on how many possessions?
21. I believe the official stat came out to 23, but post game he said 21.
And I'd like to see validate that as we're watching and see, how much of it actually feels zone, because it felt zone the whole game.
Yes.
And so I wonder, going in with that kind of mindset of it wasn't as much as we think, if that would feel different.
Well, because he said this. He said a lot of the shots made against the zone were really loud shots, as in they were momentum killers for the Jazz or builders for the Kings. And they were. There was a lot of Harrison Barnes wide open threes. If even half of those miss, we're wow, look at this zone. It's genius.
Yeah.
And obviously you got to get a hand up on those guys, especially the Clippers, where they're a really good 3-point shooting team. But I think the zone could work. I just don't know if it'd work against this Clippers team.
And, what the zone did for that Kings team was really open up the three lane. Like we said yesterday, they shot 51 threes, which is an insane amount of threes. And they were making them. I mean, Harrison Barnes was 5 for 5 in the first half against us, and it left a lot of corner threes. And a lot of with this Clippers team, people are like, oh, that's fine. They don't have crazy good shooters, which, partly seems true off of paper.
Yes.
But then you look back at this stat, and I don't know if you saw this because it didn't feel like it versus the Trailblazers. Kawhi actually went 5 for 5 from 3.
He did.
Kawhi went 5 for 5 for 3, and Paul George went 4 for 7. So that's 9 for 12 between their two superstars from the three, from beyond the arc.
That's not a fun stat to hear going into tonight.
No, it's not, because you don't expect that. Kawhi doesn't shoot a lot of threes. So if he's making his first one, expect a couple more, because he's very, very consistent. He just isn't shooting a lot of them. Paul George has no problem shooting the ball, especially off the dribble.
Yeah.
He is a guy that's going to give you probably 75 to 80% of his threes off the dribble. And for him to go 4 for 7, I mean, that's a confidence booster for him. And I think he comes out firing away. But that's where I could see the zone working is Paul George is a off the dribble guy.
Correct.
And so he's not sitting in the corner waiting to shoot the 3. Covington is. He's that guy that just kind of camps over there, kind of like a PJ Tucker, but he's not making them nearly as consistently. And so I'm not too worried about that. And so I wonder, when Kawhi is just basically top of the key, going to shoot it if he's open, which I bet you he gets a few open threes, but it'll be interesting to see how they play against Paul George and his, ability to just get to the hoop off the dribble. What do you think the key would be to stop, if you're in a zone, what do you kind of planning around Kawhi and Paul George?
That's really hard because typically when you're in a zone, you're almost wanting them to shoot the three and you're trying to compact the paint, right?
Yes.
You're not trying to let them drive.
But respectfully, I don't want to compact the paint for Zubats and Covington. I'm not like too stressed.
No, I'm not. But at the same time, they only have, I mean, I don't know how Russell shot from three on Thursday I think it was about
Wednesday. 1 for 5.
Yeah. I mean, he can get hot too, but truth be told, I'm not sure how I'd play it any different. Obviously, the play of the game yesterday we saw when Chris Dunn just left Harrison Barnes.
Yeah.
We can't have that again because
Paul George will eat that up.
Oh, he will go for 30 just off of that action.
That exact move that we saw is Paul George's absolute sweet spot.
Mm-hmm.
He loves to just get in that dribble, can do a little floater. Kawhi's a little bit different. He's going to kind of try in the ISO game a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'll be interested to see how we play that ISO, but Paul George will absolutely shred us apart if we can't fix that.
I agree. And Kawhi's a little bit different. Kawhi wants to play with you on his hip. He doesn't he has no intention of blowing past you anymore, which I think that benefits the zone a little bit. But like you said, Paul George will absolutely tear us apart with it. So I'm really curious to see how we come out tonight because we gave up corner threes, which is, and I'm sure you know this, the shortest three in the NBA by about 4 feet.
Yeah.
So it's a really, really easy shot, even for guys like Russell Westbrook. Do we move the zone down a little bit, kind of focus on the baseline? Maybe. We might, but I'm sure that we aren't going to play heavy zone tonight. If I had to guess, I would say less zone possessions than we had on Wednesday.
All right. You heard it here first. Paul is predicting less zone play per possessions tonight.
If I had to set a line on zone possessions, and we can break this down on
let's
Monday,
set a line. Let's set a line.
17 and a half. I would go 17 and a half, and I'd personally take the under.
Okay, Paul, I'll take the over.
Okay. You take the over, I take the under. I think it's going to be less than 17 zone possessions tonight.
All right. You heard it here first. We've got a nice little something going on the line for possessions in the zone. And, like we were saying, Russell Westbrook is a player that's going to absolutely attack the hoop. Paul George is a player that's going to use a lot of dribbles and try and get a little, little move to the hoop, maybe a little step back. He loves that. Kawhi wants you right on his hip, just like Carmelo Anthony.
Yes.
You get him in a little 3-point position, from the wing or the elbow. It's game over. He'll sit there and pump fake 10 times if he has to.
Yeah.
Before he gets you either draws a foul or takes one dribble and little mid-range shot.
And I think Kawhi's become an underrated passer as well.
Absolutely.
Like he's really, really good at finding the open spot. So if these Clippers are moving off the ball, and they're all quick enough to really make a difference moving off the ball, expect Kawhi to have a big assist game. I'm not sure what his assist prop is tonight. I'd take the over. I think he's going to have a great game passing the ball. But let's talk about the Jazz offense for a little bit.
Yeah, I was just going to turn that. I was going to say, who do you think will shine versus the Clippers? And honestly, I look at Lowry, right? He's due for a good game. Who do you think Kawhi, if let's say the Clippers are in a man defense, which they love to play, who do you think Kawhi is going to take?
I think Kawhi is guarding John Collins.
Okay.
I don't know. That's tough, actually, because it depends on who they want to really carry the burden offensively.
If you're Tyronn Lue and you're playing a man, who would you want Kawhi to guard?
Kawhi's guarding John Collins because I don't want him chasing Lauri Markkanen all game, but I am having him and Paul George take turns on Lauri. I think Lauri is going to shoot the ball over 20 times tonight. He shot the ball, I believe, 14 times on Wednesday. Last year, get this one. Last year, out of the 66 games Lauri played, only 20 of them, he shot the ball less than 16 times.
Wow.
Last game, he shot the ball 14 times, which is really, really below where he wants to be. I think he shoots the ball 20 plus times tonight, which in turn is going to be a huge burden for this Clippers defense.
I mean, we saw Lowry, he came out the gate shooting 2 threes. Unfortunately, he missed them both, but it just goes to show, I mean, he lives on the perimeter.
Yeah.
You're not really seeing him post up that much. He's a guy that's going to sit there, shoot the ball, maybe take 2 dribbles in and try and do a little Euro, trying to get to the hoop, which he's really good at finishing. The finisher, obviously, right? But, I think he lives around the perimeter, which is where Paul George's defense excels.
Yes.
Paul George is an extremely good perimeter defender where Kawhi is able to, play with people in the paint. And so I'm really excited about that and kind of see where that goes. But, I think we really excel in that kind of aspect, is kind of moving them around and getting them confused.
So if you watch the first 5 possessions of the Kings game. Sorry, there's a lot of teams in my brain. You watch the first 5 possessions, 4 of them were plays for Laurie, which is really cool. I guess one of them wasn't. It was a European pick and roll where the set of pick and roll, I think it was THT and Collins, and then Laurie sets a pick on Collins' guy and flares up to the top of the key. And that's the 3 that went in and out at the very beginning. And then the next one was just a pin down play. It's something Quinn Snyder used to run a lot for Gordon Hayward, where he just, Laurie's sitting on the block, and somebody comes down, sets the screen, and he either curls it and is going to the hoop, or the guy goes under the screen, and Laurie has a wide open 3. And that's the one on the wing that went in and out, and the whole crowd kind of got up, and then it was right after THT's 3. I think we're going to see a lot of that tonight, like a heavy dose of just get our star player the ball and let him go to work. Like I said, 14 shots is not nearly enough for our best player. It didn't even look outside of those first 5 possessions that we featured him that much. I think Will is going to really lean on Laurie tonight, especially knowing that the Suns game is going to be a little bit easier.
Mm-hmm. And, throwing out a little new segment as well, and I'm calling it, Conjo's key of the game. And I think the key for tonight's game is get Jordan Clarkson hot early.
Yes.
I think Clarkson got a lot of garbage points at the end of the game, which made his stats look really good, but he didn't necessarily get very active very early. And I think that really set us back, especially because he is, our second paid player.
Yeah.
And someone that needs to get active and someone that's an absolute fire starter. And I think just getting him in the game, shooting quick and doing his ISO dribbles and just kind of getting those floaters going. I think if we can get Jordan Clarkson efficient and hot early, I think we'll come out the gate and everything will, flow a lot smoother.
Well, it's so important to have another threat when you're running plays for Laurie, because it's so easy for guys to help off of even Jordan Clarkson, who's a great shooter, but it's like if he's not making his shots or he's not even taking shots, then it doesn't really matter if you help off of him or not. And he's the type of player, and he's shown it for 3 years with the Jazz now. If he doesn't get the ball early and doesn't get shots early, he's more than happy just kind of fade back.
Which is why he came off the bench. He's a 6th man of the year.
Yeah.
And so he came off the bench. Why? Because your 6th man of the year is arguably a great shooter. If you look at, historically 6 mans, you got J.R. Smith, you have Lou Williams,
Jamal Crawford.
Those are all literally, throw Jordan Clarkson in that conversation. Those are 4 2 guards that come in and shoot the lights out and get excited. They come in the game and the first thing they do with the ball is either driving someone in an ISO and just playing around with them and trying to get a hoop, or just absolutely shooting the rock the second they get it. And so I think by moving Jordan Clarkson into the starting lineup, I think what that does is convert that to the beginning of the game versus, when we are a little bit stagnant and need a fire starter off the bench. We need to convert that same kind of role that he had while on the bench into the starting lineup, which I think is going to take a minute. I think that's the idea of him starting, but I think that's going to be an absolute big key in this game if we want to get him active and want to have a good game.
Yeah, it's so hard because you have Laurie, who you need to get going early because he averaged 27 last year, 26. Like, you need him to get his shots early, but you got to have a guy like Jordan Clarkson, where if he's not getting plays ran for him, like I said, he's more than happy just take a back seat the rest of the game. Which, if the Jazz are going to win a lot of games, he can't be doing that consistently. So this kind of reminds me of the 2016 Cavs team. I'm not sure how much you watched that team, but the first 2 possessions of every single game, Kevin Love was getting a post up on the right or left block. Every game, no matter what. They didn't care who they were playing. Give Kevin Love the ball. Let's see if he can get going early. And I would love to see something similar with Jordan Clarkson.
I mean, the Lakers do that with AD.
Yes.
AD usually gets a dunk or some kind of shot in the paint right off the bat every time. And I think that's why I love Keyonte, or we need, a point guard that's going to be able to space the floor right off the bat, because we have guys like Clarkson who needs to get hot early. We need Laurie to get 16 shots a game to get up to his averages, consistently like he did last year. And a guy like John Collins, who also wants to shoot the ball more. So I think having a point guard that can disperse that in an efficient way is going to be absolutely huge and to get the game started quick.
Do you think we have too many guys? Do you think we need to make a consolidation trade?
We'll see how these 4 point guards go. Yeah. I think we'll see the rotations change, and so we can have that conversation after we see a couple games with these rotations.
You even just named off like what the starters need as far as like shots, and I kind of got overwhelmed. And then I remember we have like 4 guys coming off the bench. I don't know
how many shots we can get out of this. This is crazy. These are bench players. Not a lot of them are like needing a ton of shots.
No, but they all can score. So it's like you want to give them shots. Like, you don't want Colin Sexton to come in and only shoot 3 shots. Like, you want him to get the rock.
And so here's a fun question. if you're the Jazz, are you more scared to play against Paul George, or are you more scared to play against Kawhi?
At this point in their careers, I think Paul George is a much more terrifying player. He, especially, excuse me, if the Jazz are going to play this zone, we said it, Paul George is absolutely going to slice them apart. He's still quick. He's still athletic. One thing that's really underrated is his retraction dribble, or whatever you want to call it, where he can drive into a guy and step back. It's more of a pullback than a step back.
Nasty.
That against the zone kills it, because if we see what we saw the other night where Chris Dunn kind of hands him off, and then all of a sudden you have Kelly Olynyk on an island against Paul George, that's terrifying. You're getting a switch without having to set a ball screen. That gets really scary for the defense. I'm way more terrified of Paul.
See, and I'm going to disagree with you on this one.
Really?
I'm going to take Kawhi, and I say that because I want to use one word, and that word is efficiency. Paul George, like we said, he can absolutely light you up. But the thing is he is way more it's way more common for him to have a bad game than Kawhi. I think Paul George gets in his head a lot too, like we saw in the playoffs in 2017,
and
or I guess 2018, and in the bubble. Yes, he, you get him to miss a few shots, he's going to keep shooting, which is great for a player. You always say keep shooting, but that can go one way or another.
He tries to shoot himself out of a slump, which is not what you want to do.
Exactly right. No, he shoots himself out of a slump. And we're right on the spot there. But where I disagree with you is Kawhi, like we said, 5 for 5 from 3. Every single one of those shots was a smart shot. Kawhi is only shooting the ball when he knows 100% of the time that it is going in. You rarely see Kawhi shoot a bad shot.
He is one of the smartest basketball players. And that's one thing I also think that's underrated with him. He's a good passer. He doesn't take bad shots. He always is within the flow of the offense.
And it feels like when he is standing at the free throw line on defense, his arm touches the wing of the 3 and his other arm touches the other wing. It's really hard to get past him. So I'm really interested to see how the Jazz, kind of the offense that they run, because getting to the hoop's going to be tough with Kawhi just kind of, roaming around over there and Paul George protecting the 3. But I personally think Kawhi is much more dangerous because you kind of know what you're getting from Paul George each night. Kawhi, you have no idea. You have no idea if he's going to shoot a 3. He might shoot 0. He might just go straight mid-range. He might shoot 3s. He might only play defense. He might get 10 rebounds. He might space the floor out. He is the Swiss Army knife that we underappreciate because we don't see him play as much. I mean, the dude has won championships, unlike Paul George. He has a Finals MVP, unlike Paul George. He is absolutely phenomenal. And I think them playing together, they're still figuring out. But Kawhi is scary. He is scary.
There were discussions for multiple years after the playoffs. Is Kawhi the best player in the league? Sure. I don't remember Paul George ever being a part of those conversations.
Yeah, he's had, his stunt. He had 1 year in OKC where he was right before he got hurt in Indiana.
Yeah.
Then a year in OKC where it was he was in the MVP conversation, but
no one ever got on the radio talk show and said,
Kawhi's been there, and he is still there, and he's still there. So everybody, let us know what you think. Are you more scared of Paul George, or are you more scared of Kawhi Leonard, the Claw? So would love to hear what everybody thinks. But before we kind of we kind of talk a lot about the Clippers, but let's not forget we have a doubleheader.
We have the Suns.
We have the Suns on
national
Saturday.
television.
National television.
NBA TV. If you're here in Utah, you still got to watch it on either Jazz Plus or KJazz. But if you're out of Utah and you're listening to this, NBA TV.
Yeah, so I think the Suns are an interesting team. I think, it's really hard to talk about it when we have Booker and Beal out. KD went for 39 last night. He didn't even shoot a 3 in the first half. He has become an absolute mid-range. I mean, he's an all-time scorer. And I think Lowry will actually probably play him. And I think that'll honestly be good size-wise, or they're right there. And so, again, there's not really much of an answer for KD. And so, my key of the game for the Suns would honestly be isolate KD as much as possible on offense and on defense. I think if the Jazz can get KD to just, obviously he's going to make shots, but if we can just kind of put him on his own island and just kind of force him to pass to other guys, I think our guys will compete. And I think we can, they're not too deep. They're not a deep team, the Suns. And I think we can shut them down. But then on defense, I also like getting him away. If we can get him to a corner and just do our offense and drive and just do our kind of thing, especially with no Ayton anymore, and just get to the rack and get open shots away from KD because of his length. I think that's going to be a key. It's just get KD out of the picture as much as possible, and I think we win this game.
I love that key. So last night, if you watched the Suns and Lakers game, Kevin looked fantastic. He looked like the real rim defender rather than Nurkic. Nurkic looked a little slow. He got in foul trouble, so give it to him there. But Kevin looked really mobile. More mobile than I've seen him in a couple of years on the defensive end, and obviously it's out of necessity because Eubanks wasn't going to be guarding the middle of the key.
Yeah.
As far as offense goes, something that the Hawks did, I want to say it's the play-in game 3 years ago or maybe 2 years ago, or the game right before the play-in game. They said, Kevin, you can go for 50. And I think he did. No one else is going to get a shot off. So they just played 4-on-4 basically and said, Kevin, you can have the ball. You go 50. No one else can score. And the Hawks won that game. And you're like, okay, well, the Jazz could do something very similar. And if they do that tomorrow, I think the Jazz not only walk away, I think it's going to be a convincing win on national television. And with that said, there's 0% chance, in my opinion, that the Jazz start 0-for-3. If we drop the game tonight, expect a huge win tomorrow night, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think the Jazz tend to play better against better teams. So, before we wrap it up, I'm thinking, let's throw out some predictions. Okay. Obviously, traditional, just throw out some predictions. My prediction for the Clippers game is a 5-point game, either way, within 2 minutes. So, end of the game, 2 minutes left. I think we're either within 5 or up 5. I think we keep it close.
Yeah.
We tend to come out the gate playing at the level of our opponent, which is great and also has its downsides. But I think with the Suns, I think we take a win versus Suns. I think it's our first away game. I think we want to chip our shoulder, especially how we see the Clippers game goes. But I think I'm not too worried. I think we beat the Suns by 7+. Like I said, with the Clippers, I think we keep it within 5 or we're up 5 within 2 minutes left of the game.
Do you know if the Suns play on Sunday again, or do they have that day off?
I'm not aware. I think they have that day off.
Okay. If they have that day off, Kevin will play. I was going to say there could be a chance Kevin rests if Bradley and Devin aren't playing.
KD doesn't tend to rest that much, so I think he'll play in the game.
Okay. So for tonight, I think the Clippers kind of handle us in the second half. I think the first half, like you said, is going to be close. It's a Friday night in Salt Lake City. There's not a lot going on in the city outside of the Utah Jazz.
Yeah. I
think it's going to be a sellout crowd. I think the Jazz are going to come out hot. I do think that the Clippers get the best of us, especially in the fourth quarter. I think the Jazz fall 117 to 108. I think it's going to be a 10 to 12 point game the entire second half. As far as the Phoenix game goes, Jazz are going to score 129 points. The Suns are going to score 113. And I think that game is going to follow the exact same path that the Clippers game does tonight, where Suns are going to come out. It's their second home game. It's on the weekend. Fans want to be there. So kind
of reverse.
Yeah, it's reverse. Jazz come out hot. The Suns are going to come out hot. Jazz are just going to grab the reins of that game and just kind of control it the whole second half. I don't think either of them come down to the final 2 or 3 minutes. I think the Jazz fall tonight, get the win tomorrow.
Awesome. Paul, you're wearing a sweet shirt there.
Thank you. I really like the hat too. It looks good on you.
Thank you. You guys are wondering, I think these are pretty sweet shirts and hats. Cool. So
I like them.
Just throwing that out there. But this has been STLK in the UTA Jazz Podcast. I'm Conjo. This is Paul. We'll catch you back on Monday afternoon, recapping the Clippers game, recapping the Suns game, and also preparing for the Denver Nuggets on Monday night. So lots to unfurl on Monday. We're super excited. We'll catch you then.